Shalom, Reb Brian Yosef here. This week's video talks about two different aspects of presence. One is surrender, which means letting go of resistance to whatever the truth of our experience is in the moment, and through that opening up to the spaciousness and peace and healing that is inherent in our being. And the other aspect is learning to see why we resisted in the first place. And unlike surrender, which doesn't really take any thought process, it's just a letting go of thought and an opening up, the process of learning about ourselves to see why we were resisting in the first place so we have a better shot next time we encounter things that we're inclined to resist actually involves the thinking mind. It's a contemplation process. So I hope you enjoy, and if you do, go ahead and give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want. Leave a comment. I always love to hear from people. All of that helps me out a lot. Okay, on with the teaching. This is the story of Jacob and his brother Esau, Yaakov and Esav. It opens with Jacob returning home to the land of Canaan after a 20-year stay in Haran. He went to Haran originally because his brother Esav was going to kill him because he did a trick on their father to get the blessing, and he also kind of manipulated him to giving up his birthright as well. So he's coming back, and he sends angels ahead of him to meet his brother Esau in hope of a reconciliation, but they report back that Esau is on the warpath with 400 armed men. Jacob prepares for war, but also sends Esau a large gift consisting of hundreds of heads of livestock to appease him, and then intensely prays for salvation. That night, Jacob sends his family and possessions across the Jabbok River while he remains behind and encounters a mysterious being with whom he wrestles until daybreak. This is the famous story of Jacob wrestling with the angel. Jacob suffers a dislocated hip, but vanquishes the supernal creature, who bestows upon him the name Yisrael, Israel. Vayivater Yaakov levado. Jacob was left alone. This is after he does everything he can to prepare himself for meeting his brother, and he's left alone all by himself. V'ye'avek ish imo. And a being wrestled with him, ad alot hashachar, until the rising of the dawn. To begin, we're just going to look at this little story. It's a teaching, actually, given by Rabbi Baruchs of Mezbush, the Hasidic Rebbe, and he's teaching on a different verse in a psalm. The psalm verse is Ger Anochi Ba'aretz. I am a stranger on the earth. Al taster mimeni mitzvotecha. Do not hide your commandments from me. And so Rabbi Baruchs gave a little teaching on this verse. What does it mean? I'm a stranger on the earth. Don't hide your commandments from me. What is that? What do those two things have to do with each other? So he gives a little parable. He says, when a person is driven into exile and comes to a strange and alien land, he has nothing in common with the people who are there and not a soul he can talk to. But if a second stranger appears, even though the new stranger comes from a totally different place, the two can confide in one another and become close friends. But had they not both been strangers, they never would have known such close companionship. So the idea here is, how does a feeling out of touch, a feeling disconnected, a feeling alienated actually lead to a state of more intimacy and more connection, at least in a particular way? And that's what this is about. It's about a person becoming more connected, more experientially intimate with the divine through being uncomfortable in whatever their situation is in life. That's kind of the thrust of this parable. And so he says, that's what the psalmist means. You, Hashem, are a stranger on earth just like me, because you're hidden from those who feel alienated. So I ask you, please don't hide from me, but reveal to me your commandments. And commandments is a little bit of a metaphor in a sense, or a pointer. What it really means is, reveal to me the wisdom that can only be learned through this suffering of alienation. Okay, so here's the beginning of our Torah verse that we looked at. Vayivater Yaakov levado. Jacob was left alone. So this word alone, levado, is really hinting at this same state of disconnection or alienation. Jacob too is feeling alienated and alone, knowing that his brother is coming toward him with 400 men to kill him. What could make you feel more disconnected and alienated than your own family killing you? I mean, it's hard to imagine. Vayishlakh ish imo, and a being wrestled with him. So what does this mean? It means he's wrestling with his situation. He's struggling against the reality before him. He resists the truth of his predicament. But eventually, the being says to Jacob, Shalcheni ki Allah hashachar, let me go, for the dawn has arisen. So in every experience of struggle, there comes a time to let go, to stop telling yourself stories about it, to stop torturing yourself with it, and to open to a new daybreak. But is there a value in not letting go? This is interesting because, it's a common wisdom and a challenging thing to do to let go when we're holding on to something from the past, when we have a grudge or we wish something was different and we're just like contracted inside and not letting go of it. So we know spiritually that the wise thing to do is to accept what is and to let go. But now we're asking a complementary question. Is there a value actually in not letting go? Because this is what Jacob says. Vayomer lo ashalechacha, I will not let you go, ki im berachtani, until you bless me. In other words, he wants to, before he lets go, he wants to get a blessing that comes from the struggle. Is there a blessing that comes from not letting go? And he said, this is the being, the mysterious being that is sometimes called an angel. The being says, no longer will it be said that your name is Jacob, but Yisrael, because you have struggled with the divine and with man and have prevailed. It's true. Jacob has done everything he could do with both God and people to take responsibility. He's split up his camp to ensure the survival of at least half of them. He has sent many gifts to appease his brother, and he's prayed to God for safety and protection. And now, after an all-night struggle with his anxiety and fear, the day is breaking, meaning he's beginning to let go of it. He's beginning to accept. And he's done his best. He's done everything he could. So now he has become Yisrael, and he's ready to let go, to send away his struggles, in a sense, surrendered to whatever's going to happen. But something is missing. He's not satisfied with the mere title of Yisrael. There's something else he still needs. Vayishlakh, Yaakov, Jacob asked, tell me please your name. The word for asked, Yishlakh, it's made of the same letters as his new name, Yisrael, except that it's missing the letter Resh, the R sound, the R sound. The letter Resh actually means head. It implies authority, as in the head of a school or the head of a company and so on. And as Yisrael, Jacob has used his head wisely. He has thought through his situation. He's acted responsible as the head of his family. But in asking a question, Yisrael becomes Yishal. He loses the resh, as if to say, my head is incomplete. There's something I still don't know. What is it that he still does not know? He doesn't know the identity of the being that he's wrestling with. In other words, even though he might be ready to give up his struggle, he doesn't yet understand the nature of his struggle. Vayomer lama ze tish'al lishmi? The being said, why do you ask me my name? His opponent puts a question back to Jacob. What is your motivation in asking? Why are you asking me this? So, when we experience the inner pain of resistance, frustration, fear, anxiety, negativity of any kind, there comes a time when we can accept and we let go. Through meditation, we can do it a lot more efficiently. But even if you're not a spiritual person, you don't meditate, eventually, hopefully you let go. Maybe not completely, but it's a pretty natural thing. Little children do this all the time. Little children are great at letting go, but that doesn't help them stay out of trouble in the future. Right? The next moment, they're upset about something else. There's no self-reflection. There's no sense of how they create their own suffering. If you have experience or had experience with children at any point, you know this. They can be like more angry than an adult would ever become. Like just pounding the floor, screaming bloody murder, and then something happens to strike. They let go. They're fine. They're totally fine. But that doesn't mean that they've learned anything from it. Not yet. But if you take time to really look at your own motivation and ask yourself, how am I creating my experience? Then there's the possibility for growth, for actually responding to life with a new wisdom. That kind of wisdom can only be won through the real struggles of your life. You have to go through the struggles and then reflect on it and think about it. So this is an interesting counterpoint to meditation, because usually in meditation, we talk about the value of not thinking, of letting go of the movement of the mind, because the movement of the mind can create a screen and preconceptions through which we view things. But that's like in Kabbalah, that's called chokhmah, wisdom. But the counterpoint to that is bina, which is contemplation, which is thinking deeply about something. And if we reflect and think, what was it that I was really resisting? Or what influenced me from the past to think that way? And what did that create when I did that? And so on. Then we can learn something about ourselves. But the struggle doesn't automatically give it to you. Just because you went through a struggle doesn't mean that you learned anything. Right? You have to hold on to it a little longer and deeply inquire into yourself before the dawn of letting go causes you to forget all about it. This is so true. We don't want to feel emotional pain. So when we are able to let go of it and we feel better, the tendency is to not want to think about it anymore. Therefore, we can run that risk of not learning anything from it. We're just happy that we're not in that place anymore. And so we just kind of ignore the fact that we might come into that place again and there might be something to learn. Okay, but the wisdom you get from that self-inquiry is the deeper blessing that comes from suffering. One blessing that comes from suffering is learning to be conscious and learning to let go. But the other blessing is actually something that we can learn about ourselves from it. Then suffering takes on a whole new dimension. It's no longer our enemy. Behind our troubles and problems, there is the divine friend urging us to grow, to evolve. That divine support beneath our suffering is represented by the letter SAMEKH. So the letter SAMEKH actually means support. The word for support in Hebrew is SOMEKH. So it's almost the same word. It's just the vowels a little different. And this is one of the spiritual qualities that we can plug into, especially with regard to when we're feeling unsupported, when we're feeling like we're just kind of a victim. We can remember, wait a minute, it is within my potential right now to get some blessing from this suffering, and also know that it's only temporary. So before it goes, I remember hearing a teacher once, I can't remember who the teacher was, but someone asked the teacher, and I believe it was a Tibetan Buddhist teacher, Rinpoche. Someone said to this Rinpoche, what do you do if you find yourself in hell? Meaning not literally hell, but like an emotional kind of hell. And he said, well, I would stay there as long as I could. Which is, of course, a very surprising answer, especially from a Buddhist tradition, which is about relieving suffering. But that's the whole crazy wisdom of this whole thing, is that in order to not be a victim of emotional suffering, part of it is to get beyond it, to accept and feel better. But also part of it is to change our frame on the suffering. So it's not all about the suffering. It's about that this is urging me on to learn something. Okay, and here's our little blessing for today on this week of Shabbat Vayishlakh, the Shabbat of sending. May our personal pain and all the troubles of the world be sent far away. Be'ezrat Hashem, may it be so. But before it goes, may we recognize the ever-present divine support we need to extract the light that can only come from the darkness, the self-knowledge we need to evolve. And as we approach the time of Hanukkah, those of us who celebrate Hanukkah, may that light ever increase as the light of the menorah, nudging the whole world toward new growth and evolution in consciousness. And God knows we need more of that. SAMEKH lechol hanoflim. That is a way to describe the divine, the one who supports the fallen. Rokah haaretz al hamayim, who spreads out the earth on the waters. That is, in this life of constant change, that there is nevertheless an inner stability that we can plug into. And that stability is essentially just the state of being present, of resting the thinking mind in the truth of however this moment is appearing, and knowing that that support is there for us to benefit and gain the blessing from that. So we sing together. SAMEKH lechol hanoflim. SAMEKH lechol hanoflim. SAMEKH lechol hanoflim. SAMEKH lechol hanoflim. Rokah haaretz al hamayim. Rokah SAMEKH lechol hanoflim. SAMEKH lechol hanoflim. SAMEKH lechol hanoflim. Rokah Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the teaching and the chant. If you did, be sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a lot. Leave a comment if you feel so inclined. I'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to learn more about the particular kind of meditation we do, you can download a free instructional recording to learn integral Jewish meditation. And if you want to go deeper, you can meditate with us almost every day on Zoom when you become a member of Torah of Awakening. You can do both of those at torahofawakening.com. Until next time, all blessings.